Blood of My Blood is following Outlander's footsteps when it comes to exploring the dark realities of the past, especially for women. In fact, when it came to putting its characters through hell, Episode 8 reached its highest point. Unfortunately, things are about to get even worse, so let's talk about it. It is the day of the dreadful examination that I still cannot believe they went through with. They prepare Ellen. Everyone is nervous. The Mackenzie brothers are anxious because they know they are betraying their sister with this move. Malcolm Grant is concerned that this will, as it should, make Ellen detest him. Ellen is concerned that a single incident could end her life completely. And Brian is nervous because his love, or rather his wife, is in danger. The only person who is stupidly happy about all of this is none other than Lord Tevat. This man lives in his own world and doesn't care about anything else. Thankfully, we only spent a couple of minutes with him in this episode. I don't know if it's just me, but whenever he's on screen, I'm the one who gets nervous. So even though this episode was extremely unnerving, I welcomed the absence of Lord Tevat for sure. You might have noticed I didn't mention Julia and Henry because, interestingly, they didn't have any direct interest in what was going on. However, they got involved anyway, merely to help Brian and Ellen. When Brian was at his lowest, Julia showed him a way out by coming up with a clever trick to save Ellen from her dire circumstances. Of course, she knew this trick thanks to her past as a nurse. In those moments, I was completely transported back to Outlander. As we approached the 8th episode, the casting and the resemblances between Claire and Julia continued to captivate me. I don't feel the same when it comes to Brian and Ellen. They don't remind me of Jamie as much. But Julia is basically Claire in my eyes. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Julia prepared Ellen so that no modern physician could detect anything when she was about to undergo this humiliating examination. As a result, they were able to develop a lasting bond that will be crucial in the upcoming episodes. Even though she didn't see Brian, she knew he was the one who had brought her there, which also demonstrated to Julia that Brian's love for her was genuine. From now on, we will witness a completely different Julia than we are used to. But I'll talk more about that in a moment. The long-awaited meeting between Henry and Julia was the part of this episode that made me cry, despite the heartbreaking story of Ellen. Although it was brief, it had a huge impact. Julia appeared to be more prepared for such a situation. She immediately told Henry that they would meet again soon and that everything was real. Henry, on the other hand, was completely in shock. For the love of God, he thought she had passed away. He took a moment to realize that this wasn't just a daydream. It was actually her. Honestly, I'm still not certain if he fully grasped that Julia was alive, but he will in the next episode. That's for sure. In episode 9, we will see Henry and Julia desperately trying to arrange a meeting. It will be easier for them because Lord Tevat will be absent for some time, but that doesn't mean everything will be easy. In fact, when Henry finds out Julia is now another man's wife, he will go crazy. His mental health was already in shambles, and this revelation will push him further to the edge. He'll do everything in his power to avoid blaming Julia, but his internal struggle will be very real. Meanwhile, Lord Tevat will return from his so-called treatment with the realization that he has no health issues at all. As expected, he will start questioning his household and the food he eats, becoming suspicious that there is a traitor in the house. First, he will target Brian's mother, but when Julia defends her, he will turn his suspicion toward Julia. He will go so far as to push things that he even threatens to take her child. On the other hand, Brian and Ellen will be compelled to remain apart. As you might remember, Ellen's servant bribed Brian to leave her alone, and keeping them apart will now be her mission moving forward. The only problem is that they will soon discover Julia is actually pregnant, which will force her to speed up the marriage process with Malcolm Grant. Clueless about the pregnancy, Brian won't believe his ears when he hears about the wedding, and he will collapse immediately. For more weekly updates on Blood of My Blood, make sure to like and follow. Meanwhile,